Welcome, deep divers. Today we're going into something incredibly personal, often really overwhelming. We're talking about navigating the emotional aftermath when someone you love, maybe even your spouse, has been unfaithful. It's a profound challenge. It can really shake the foundations of everything you've built together. Our goal here isn't about quick fixes. It's more about bringing some clarity, some understanding to that emotional storm you might be in. For this deep dive, we're looking at insights from excerpts from When Someone Cheats, Feelings and God's Help. It's a piece by relationship coach Meri Horton. Our mission really is to unpack the stages of feelings she describes and, explore how her material suggests navigating them. It offers a kind of framework which can be helpful when trust is just shattered. Horton, she says, finding out someone cheated is, quote, a really hard thing to go through. Makes sense, right? And it can make you feel, well, all sorts of different emotions, sometimes all at once. She even compares it to riding a roller coaster. That first hit, that gut punch, she notes it often shows up as denial. You know that moment. When your brain just sort of refuses to accept what you've heard. Horton nails it. It's like when you hear bad news and you think, no way, that can't be true. It's almost like your mind throws up a temporary shield,
Yeah.
protecting you from that immediate, just overwhelming pain. So how does understanding that initial, almost automatic defense help someone actually start to find their feet when everything feels like it's crumbling?
Well, it's crucial, really, recognizing denial as uh, a protective thing, not some personal failing. That allows for a bit of self-compassion right off the bat. Your brain isn't rejecting reality because you're weak. It's trying to buy time, basically, to process something that feels impossible. Horton's point here isn't just describing it. It's like foundational for starting to navigate the chaos. When the ground feels like it's disappeared, this first stage gives you a moment, maybe just a brief one, of mental space.
Right. And what does Horton's material suggest about finding some grounding in that moment, especially if your faith feels shaky or far away?
Yeah, the material really emphasizes that God understands this confusion, this disbelief. It's okay to feel that way. It even brings up King David from the Bible. He felt scared, wanted to run, but he knew he could still talk to God about his deepest fears, his doubts. The core message is really one of presence. God is always there, ready to listen, even when you're so overwhelmed you can't even find the words. And that offers this sense of unwavering support when things feel incredibly disorienting, especially when the betrayal makes you feel completely alone.
Okay, so after that initial disbelief starts to fade, Horton points to this, well, powerful surge of anger. We're often told kind of push those intense feelings down, right? But what does her material say about this really necessary phase? And it's not just like being a bit annoyed, it's often this deep burning rage. You might be furious at the person who betrayed you, obviously, that makes total sense. But Horton also acknowledges you might turn that anger inward, blame yourself, or even question God. Why would he let this happen in your life, in your marriage? She presents it as totally normal, a valid feeling when trust is just broken so deeply.
Exactly. And if we connect that to, the bigger human experience,
Yeah.
Horton normalizes it. She affirms it's okay to feel angry when someone's caused such deep hurt. And that's critical because society often pressures us to just be okay, to move past tough emotions really quickly. But here, anger gets validated. It's seen as a legitimate, maybe even necessary part of the emotional response. It's a sign you recognize the wrong that was done to you and to the commitment you shared.
So, given that surge of anger, how does Horton's guidance suggest, channeling it constructively, particularly from a spiritual angle?
Well, the material's pretty clear on this. God knows we get angry. And importantly, he's not upset with us for feeling that way.
Mm.
That's huge. It even references the Bible, reminding us it's okay to be angry. But the key is not letting that anger push you into doing things you'll regret later. The advice is basically, talk to God about it. Be honest about your anger. Let that conversation help you calm down, maybe prevent some destructive outbursts. It gives you this really essential outlet for release, one that aims for healing, not, more damage.
Okay, so moving on from that intense anger, Horton describes the stage of bargaining. This is a really interesting one. It's that phase where your mind might desperately try to make a deal, as if you can negotiate your way back to how things were before, somehow fix what feels completely broken in the relationship. Her material gives these really relatable examples, right? You might think, okay, if I'm just extra nice, maybe things will go back to normal. Or if I just pray harder, maybe this whole nightmare will just disappear.
It's that desperate grasp for control, isn't it? Trying to undo what's been done, erase the infidelity.
Yeah, and what Horton implicitly shows there is the human mind's desperate need for some kind of agency when facing just profound powerlessness. Bargaining isn't logical. It's an emotional plea, really. Trying to rewrite a story that's already happened, your mind is grappling with the incomprehensible. The key insight is recognizing that instinct and then, like the source suggests, learning to let go of that impossible task, acknowledging some things are just beyond our control. So how does the guidance on God's help fit in with this really powerful human need to bargain or trying to control something uncontrollable?
The material really stresses that God wants us to trust him, especially when we feel like we can't fix things ourselves. It offers a comforting promise, that God will always be with us and never leave us alone.
Hmm.
And crucially, it points out that sometimes instead of trying to strike these deals, we just need to let God take care of us and trust his will. It's about surrendering that impossible burden of trying to control the past and finding peace in a different kind of reliance. Recognizing that real healing might not come from reversing time, but, finding a new path forward with support.
Right. So after the attempts to fix things, after the anger, the disbelief, Horton's material points to a deep, heavy sadness. This isn't just feeling a bit down. It's described as feeling heavy, like a big cloud hanging over you, a profound grief for what was and maybe for the future you thought you had. In this stage, yeah, you might cry a lot, feel incredibly alone, lose interest in things you usually enjoyed, maybe things you did together as a couple, or even just on your own. It's that raw, aching pain when the full weight of the betrayal sinks in, a deep melancholy for losing that trust. And Horton's material doesn't really shy away from how raw that feels, does it?
Not at all. In fact, Horton really embraces this profound sadness as, well, a completely natural, maybe inevitable, and definitely necessary part of healing. It acknowledges the legitimate grief for the relationship as it was, for the person you thought you knew, for the trust that's gone. It's a vital phase for actually processing the emotion. It validates that this deep sadness is a natural response to being hurt so badly, especially when it hits the core of a committed relationship, like a marriage.
And in those moments of really deep sadness, the material suggests finding solace through faith. What does that look like, practically speaking, according to Horton?
Well, the material highlights that God cares deeply when we're sad. It reassures us, quoting the Bible, that he is close to people who are hurting. It actively encourages prayer or just talking to God for comfort, suggesting that this spiritual connection can offer a unique and profound kind of solace when maybe human words just aren't enough. And importantly, it also gives a crucial piece of practical advice.
Yeah.
Talk to someone you trust. Could be a parent, a teacher, a close friend, a therapist. That bridges both spiritual and human support, really, to help carry you through that heavy time.
Okay, so finally, Horton describes the crucial stage of acceptance. Now, this one's often misunderstood, right? People think it means you're suddenly okay with what happened, but her material clarifies that's not it at all. Acceptance, as she describes it, means starting to understand that what happened is real. And that understanding allows you to begin to heal, maybe begin to rebuild. You might still feel sad sometimes or angry, and that's okay. Those feelings are part of processing it all. But there's this growing sense that you can and you will move forward. It's about acknowledging the reality so you can regain some agency. Start rebuilding your life, whether that's, trying to rebuild within the relationship or charting a totally new path.
Yeah, if we connect this to the whole journey of healing, acceptance, like Horton describes it, is less about saying the action was okay and more about acknowledging reality. It's a necessary step toward personal healing, toward regaining your own sense of control. It's about moving past wishing things were different and focusing on what can be done now for your own well-being. This stage is less about forgetting, definitely not about forgetting, but more about integrating the experience into your life story in a way that lets you reclaim your emotional peace.
And what role does faith play in getting to that vital stage of acceptance? And critically, in moving forward from such a deep betrayal, especially within a marriage or committed relationship?
Horton's material directly states that God helps us forgive and find peace. And it offers this really powerful distinction. Forgiving someone doesn't mean forgetting what happened at all, but it does help your heart feel lighter. That's a profound insight, isn't it? True forgiveness is often more about releasing your own burden, your resentment, than it is about letting the other person off the hook, so to speak. It also affirms that God gives us strength to keep going, even when things feel impossibly tough. It reinforces that idea of resilience, of rebuilding, through faith. It's about finding a way to carry that experience without letting it crush you.
So pulling this all together, what does it mean for you listening right now, trying to navigate this incredibly difficult path, especially if infidelity from a partner, a spouse, has just rocked your world? Horton's excerpts offer some really clear and I think comforting takeaways. First off, she reminds us it's okay to feel lots of different things. All those emotions, denial, anger, bargaining, sadness, they're all valid. There's no right or wrong way to feel. She also emphasizes you can talk to God anytime, no matter what you're feeling, where you are in the process. He's there. And maybe most importantly, especially when you feel stuck, things can get better. It might take time, a lot of time, but healing is possible. It's not a race.
Hmm.
It's a process.
Hmm.
Exactly. And Horton sums up her overarching message with such warmth, I think. She says, God is always with you no matter how you feel. He listens when you talk to him, and he cares about every tear you cry. Even when things seem really bad, God can help you heal and feel better again. And powerfully, she affirms, you are never alone. Just understanding these emotional stages, like Meri Horton lays them out, it can be an incredibly empowering tool when you're facing something as huge as infidelity in a committed relationship. Having that framework, knowing what you're feeling, is part of a shared human experience, even a predictable one in some ways. It can be like a light on a really dark path toward healing.
It really makes you think, doesn't it? For anyone grappling with this kind of profound pain, in navigating such a deeply personal, often agonizing journey, what does it truly mean to find the strength to keep going? Especially when the source suggests that forgiveness, again, not forgetting, but forgiving, can genuinely lead to a lighter heart and open up a pathway to peace.
Yeah.
It sort of asks us to consider the power of letting go, maybe not even for the other person, but ultimately for ourselves.
That is a powerful thought to sit with. Well, we really hope this deep dive has offered some clarity, maybe some comfort on a topic that touches the deepest parts of our hearts and the very core of our relationships. Thank you so much for joining us on this exploration today.